Alec, it all comes
Yes.
down to this: the last Survivor video we'll ever do.
Wow. Why? We just reached out. We can't count to 10.
Yeah,
Can't get to double digits.
all
Is that
good
a problem?
things end at 9,
Hmm.
as you know,
Like my 90. Well,
like
it's not that anymore,
91.
I guess. Oh. It used to be just 9.
Today we are concluding our journey with Survivor Vanuatu,
Yeah.
and what a journey it was. We're going to talk about everything there is to talk about. We're going to get into some Survivor superlatives. We're going to rank the season. We're going to rank the winner. A little fun fact, and a couple questions. Not many questions, but a couple questions. It'll be fun. It'll be
Yeah.
fun.
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to talking about it. I think this season as a whole had some mostly ups, honestly. This is kind of a great season. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, that early on it was a little duller,
Mm-hmm.
but that pre-merge or that sorry, I should say that merge cast though.
Yeah, it's like a cat. It's like somehow the cast shaped into a better form. Like it trimmed the fat,
Mm,
which ironically meant keeping the less in shape guys with trimmed
yeah,
the fat, and we got to a better cast in the end than what you could probably on any given season you could imagine the Brooks and Brady's of the world making it a lot farther.
you trimmed the wasps. You get rid of
Yeah.
all them, the white Anglo-Saxon persons. You get rid of all of
Yeah.
them, and then you had the interesting people. So
So there's a lot to get to, right? For
there is.
we're gonna break down everything that happened,
Yes. Yep.
um, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. So
Okay.
from the start, we had Brooke voted out, and
Mm-hmm.
then it was a bit of a back and forth between LePevi and Yes Sir.
Yes, sir.
LePevi
We made a
were
lot of those jokes during our recording.
well. We should say it is the whole theme of the season was again like the Amazon men versus women.
It was. Yep.
Um, so there can be a lot of comparisons to that. I know I could even say right now which there was a question someone had about Brian Thomas comment which season played into the Battle of the Sexes theme better, this one or the Amazon. So that's something it was easily
That,
comparable seasons or these two because of that.
yeah. Um, I think that season, like that was the whole raison d'etre. You know, that was like the entire idea, the entire concept of that season. It kind of was here too, to a degree. They did it seemingly more out of theming for the island, where men were separated from women in sort of this tribe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but but I don't know. It's tough. I could see a case being made for both.
It's pretty present in both seasons, but
Yeah,
in the latter half of the Amazon, it became less so because Rob shook it up, and then it was never really about men versus women anymore.
I
So
would say it was a thread that was very strong to the very end. I would say. So I think I probably just based on that it would probably it definitely played into it just as much even after the merge because the men were sort of all behind and it was kind of like a can the men come back from this woman dominated game, and
mm-hmm.
especially you had Amy who was dominating. It was very much doubling down on the theme. She was very intent on playing it to the end to have it be all women in the last six,
Mm-hmm.
people, to have it be all women. Of course, it didn't end up going in her way, but her sort of insistence on playing the game that way definitely kept that thread alive. So in that sense, I think this season did probably a better job of, or probably did an overall better job in terms of laying into that theme, even if it was more implicit than it was in Amazon. So
Well, if you think of the Amazon, it was very present in like from the first tribal council when they had the whole dude bro tribal council talking about the women,
dude bro tribal council, yeah,
and then like a lot of the confessionals were about men talking about women
yeah,
and all that,
yeah,
and very like comments oriented in that way. And in this
yeah,
one, we did have that in some ways.
Well, Rory being like, the women were being so disrespectful or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Remember how he was like, they're just being a bunch of women. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And there was, yeah,
And
I would
then
say earlier on there was more of that sort of similar to Amazon sentiment,
but then
but
Sarge did coin Estrogen City
yeah,
after the merge. So it
estrogen.
was,
That's true, Estrogen City.
so it was a
Yeah,
part of the narrative for sure. Like it was such a big part. But I mean, it was less so because of the gender for a lot of it, and just because like that's tribal lines, so you could like switch out
yeah,
a lot of the stuff they're saying.
yeah,
Where Chris and Chad, or Chris and Sarge, I guess, were the ones saying that they thought that and
Twyla,
Julie and Twyla, yeah, were not all on board with the
the all women.
all women thing. You could like might as well have
Yeah,
been like the original tribe, if it didn't have to
yeah,
necessarily be women. But
yeah,
um, the Amazon was very much men versus women, because it was the first season that did that too, so it was more present.
yeah,
But then in the Ultimate Resolution, I feel like that wrapped it up a little nicer in that the women won in the end because Jenna made it there, and it's like she
yeah,
had the confessional in the beginning. It was like, I just want to win and shove it in their stupid faces. And then they had the first challenge where the men messed up in the Amazon, and then that set the tone for that season.
yeah,
And then Vanuatu had some of that, but ultimately, yeah, it became like a dominant women's alliance, and then just how Chris just kind of snuck in there to the end.
yeah.
So a lot of people have said that they don't think production are a big fan of how the show turned out, and that Jeff didn't seem to be a big fan of Chris as the winner.
I was getting vibes of that definitely got vibes of that at the reunion. I don't think we really talked about that, but now that you mention that, there was kind of a weird suspicion, or like Jeff acted like he didn't really like him, like for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
So it's almost like they wanted the narrative they wanted a woman to win.
Yeah,
But Chris defied that. I don't know why production wouldn't be happy, because it was made for a much satisfying story to me, at least, to see Chris.
I thought it was fantastic. I loved the narrative thread was just really entertaining all the way through.
And I think Chris is a good winner and like representative for the season.
For sure.
So I don't know why Jeff or production necessarily would not be a fan of it, but
maybe it's because he's not friends with Julie.
right.
He's not actually friends with Julie, which I mean, I don't know. Is he? I would probably guess not, but
That's a good theory.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about I don't know about their friendship after the show, actually. That's a good point.
It was like because he was faking all those friendships the whole time.
He never said he didn't.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Battle of the Sexes is obviously very present. But yeah, in the beginning we had Brooke voted out, Dolly voted out, John P voted out, Mia voted out, back and forth from LePevy and Yasser, and then Brady voted out. So it was back and forth all the way of the first few votes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I really do feel like those were most of the duds in casting were luckily taken out in the beginning there,
Yeah.
Which
Crazy Eyes John.
You wouldn't expect to, because usually the young athletic guys almost get a free pass for a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you need people who can do well in challenges.
Right.
But this is a season where the older guys banded together, the Fab Five, and yeah. And ultimately, all of them make it there to the merge except for Bubba. Bubba gets left out because when they do the little swap, and yes, sir, it's just Roar and Bubby with the women.
Roar and Bubby.
Then Bubba gets the short end of the stick for the classic moment. The classic moment.
Yeah,
think about the merge.
Think about the merge.
Which he's not wrong.
Nah.
They should have thought about the merge.
Yeah,
maybe they should have thought about the merge and thrown it, but
yeah.
But yeah,
but why?
Came back to bite him.
Yeah, it was not good. even though the claws were out for Lisa.
Yeah, so Lisa gets voted out next, which we were talking about. You thought it could have been a mistake for the women, and then John Cade was voted out after that, and we thought that could be a mistake for the men.
Yeah.
Because at that point, when Lisa gets voted out, it had been there's Bubba, Brady, John P, and Brooke were voted out,
Right.
and there was Dolly, Mia.
Yeah, that was it.
That was it. So it wasn't as bad when Lisa was voted out because they still had the numbers, right? That would
Yeah.
be 3-4. But then at that point, when the men decided to vote John Kay out, they could have voted a woman out there, and it would have been even numbers going
Right.
into the merge.
And that was like,
now they're down one number.
That was that. See that maybe that's why production wasn't a big fan, because it was like they just kept making weird boneheaded decisions like that. That was a bizarre decision. It was because the men made an assumption that they were keeping the women that were on their tribe, which just I don't know why they would make that assumption. Or why they would? I don't know what they did to convince the men that was the case.
Well, it's credit to Julie and Twyla.
Julie and Twyla. I mean, Twyla played a great game. I mean, Julie also
enough to where they were so convinced. Yeah. Chris, the winner of the season, was so convinced that
was the case. But here's the thing: he did that time they spent on that tribe was very integral to Chris's success.
And in the game. And it was a big part of like the story, in general, too, because they all got close from that point on.
Yeah.
So even though like they did turn her back, and then Chris brings it up later when he has like transcended. He's like, she betrayed me first, so she deserved it.
She deserved it. Yeah, where Chris enters that higher plane of existence or whatever, where he becomes a guru in the last episode.
Yeah. So I mean it is an interesting thing to track, but like they did turn their back on them for a bit, but then they ultimately started working together again.
Yeah.
Julie not so much. Like they didn't really. Julie was kind of on the outs or in the opposing alliance to Chris for a while until the end there, even though they seemed to be like best of friends, brother and sister, as they said.
Yeah. Which again. Was that a whole? Was he playing her the whole time? We didn't really know. He was like he called her the little sister he never had, and then the reunion we didn't get any real good Julie and Chris moments.
He cried. He seemed like he was genuinely emotional.
Yeah, they both seemed like they were.
Unless he's just that much of a. He's like, I'm gonna lose.
Yeah,
I'm gonna lose because my fake friendship with Julie's not working.
Yeah, I don't know
about thinking the money going away.
Maybe I don't know. It seemed like it was genuine. It seemed genuine to me. Yeah. No, I talked about that in the reaction. So
you think it would be? You think he would have stressed that more in the reunion though? But it's like maybe they had a bit of a falling out afterwards.
Maybe, yeah.
But Julie didn't seem that bitter about it in the reunion at least.
No, they seemed to be in good enough spirits about it. So.
But then we merge, and it's like worst case scenario. Rory gets voted out right before the jury.
I know we were just coming around on Rory. Rory had really shown himself to be a real charming, kind of cute guy. Honestly,
He barely got his way out of the women tribe, and he was the last one there.
He was just like he just had these really goofy, silly, cute comments about like. How he was like, I'm gonna burn the camp down, or whatever. Then he got his cup of coffee and he read that letter that his wife sent him, and he was like, "That's all I needed." And then it was like Happy Rory, and it was like this cute,
so happy, great moment. Marriage, like finally free for that, and now it's like, now he feels like he's got a new lease on life. But then of course, boom,
he just gets destroyed. Yeah,
rained on his parade. So sad.
Man, it was sad
because you would think the one guy who was a part of like had some in with the women. Would at least have more of a working relationship with them. But I wouldn't have guessed that would be the person to be voted out first.
That's not the case.
They didn't care.
Yeah.
Amy never cared.
Poor Rory.
Ruthless.
Poor Rory. We liked him. Yeah. Except when he was like, at the very first episode where I kind of hated him because he was like, those women were rubbing it on our face. Mm-hmm. And then the next time the men win, and then Sarge is like, say my name.
Yeah.
Which was kind of weird also.
But Rory, it would have been great to see an iconic jury moment from him in the final trial.
Yeah.
But Sarge,
I would have taken his jury moment over Chad's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get Chad out of here. Chad is like the one of the few duds I think in the merge group we have.
Yeah.
But yeah, Sarge gets voted out. Ultimately, going along this train of he was seemingly going to be a competition threat was basically why he was the next in line.
He was de facto leader, I think, as the women saw him, and yeah, a threat in competition.
And then when Chad was voted out, this was after Chad and them were trying to formulate this plan to get them to vote Eliza, because they were going to try to spin it in their favor there. And they were, I think this is the one where the men were expecting it to go their way, but
I think they tried to convince both Twyla and Scout to go with them to vote that way, and they didn't work. And Julie also, maybe, possibly.
I don't think Julie was included in that.
Yeah, I don't know if Julie was included. Yeah,
but they tried to form some sort of contingency there.
Yeah,
and it seemed like it had hope. But then when Chad was voted out, this is when you started losing hope in the season. You were like, oh, it's gonna be a predictable man voted out.
Yeah.
But and Chris was the last one standing at this point.
Yeah.
So I guess you were kind of feeling that way after the Sarge vote too, that it was just gonna kind of be a steamroll situation.
Yeah.
But the next vote is one of the most iconic. It's probably the most iconic moment of the season that most people talk about. Is Leanne.
It's amazing.
Getting voted out.
It was great. It was spectacular. The whole episode was just drama. You know, it's just this huge buildup, and then Twyla lays out the bombshell. He's like, "Why haven't you talked to the one person who would save you here?" And he was like, "Oh my gosh, you're right, Eliza. If I can get Eliza on my side and on our side, we can do something to upset this Amy dominance here.
Status quo, baby."
Yeah.
And it's so weird. It in retrospect, it's so weird how Amy and Leanne became so complacent in this.
Yeah.
I talked about this before, how once you're at the top, it's like you get lazy with some of your relationships and you don't care to strengthen your bonds with the people on the bottom because you feel like they're not even relevant to the game. They're just next in the chopping block.
Yeah.
And then you get so comfortable being on top the whole time that you don't know when there's no adversity, you don't know how to plan for these kinds of things. So then Leanne gets voted out of nowhere, and then Amy's whole game plan's out the window.
Yeah.
So Leanne, Amy, Julie get voted out back to back. And yeah.
Scout and Twyla were a lot more conniving, and I think they were a little bit bitter about the fact that they felt like they were just going to get eliminated, and this was their best shot at getting further in the game. And sure enough, not only was it their best shot, they were in second and third place.
Yeah.
You know, they were in much better positions at the very end than otherwise.
Amy and Leanne, all it takes is maybe a little more of coddling and making people a little more comfortable in your alliance to get them to be like, okay, we'll just vote the guy out and we'll stick it out. You know?
Yeah. Instead they were like, no, we never promised you that. Yeah, no, you're not in that alliance that far. Sorry.
Yeah.
It was like, really? Like, you're really gonna screw them out? You don't think they'll get?
Well, they told Scout that.
Yeah. But Scout was one of the people that was like, there was one time where she was like, we're gonna do this, like we're gonna get rid of Amy, kind of thing. We got to do it at some point. So she ain't just some little wise witch woman, you know. She's
her spells were brewing from the beginning. But yeah, ultimately we end up they're all completely upended. Amy's out, but when we get to the Julie vote, even though she was the expected outcome there to be voted out, there was so much spicy drama in the Julie vote and Eliza vote just because Chris kept the lie going on both sides, and so that made for good television there.
It did.
I don't think it was the best gameplay there. I think it worked out for him, but I think
it was dicey. That's for sure.
Grateful for it because it made it more entertaining than him just saying, "Yeah, I can't. I'm not voting with you."
Yeah.
Ahead of time.
Yeah, spicier.
But I guess I don't
circumstances.
know. I guess you run the risk if you tell them the people within this final group have been willing to move the vote around before. It's like maybe something will happen, will go wrong, and the women will band together against me.
Julie went against him multiple times. You know, even though they were like super close. She kind of, so it's like, what do you do? So,
but it's such an interesting final six at the very least, really interesting between Amy, Julie, Eliza, Scout, Chris, and Twyla. They're all so unique and distinct personalities. And then especially when you get to the final five and even the final four alliance, this is all formed of people with all this like past history, between Scout and Eliza and Twyla. And then Chris is the odd guy out there. There's just so much history there that
it's cool. It's crazy how it all happened like that. So I thought it was,
everybody was just like, they were playing hard, so they were willing to go where they needed to go. Like Twyla was wanting Eliza out the whole time, but she knew she had to work with her for them to shake things up and not just let Amy and Leanne get to the end. So
even though Scout definitely was the coasted sort of old lady, I felt like she did more. There were more moments of her like legitimately trying to strategize with people than most of the other sort of like coasting contestants that we've seen before, I would say.
Yeah. Scout was definitely, Chris even gives her credit at certain points where he's like, when he came back from that reward with Julie, it's like Scout immediately wanted to talk game with him.
Yeah.
It's like, she's not messing around. She said she wanted to play this game honestly or whatever.
Yeah, and if I wanted to play it with one other person, it'd be you,
Yeah.
So.
But like when she couldn't play honestly, she had to go to the, I forget that confessional exactly.
She was like, she said, if I couldn't play the game honestly, then I, lie, cheat, steal my way to to victory, I think is what she said. So, yeah, good for her. She was great.
And so there's so many interesting decisions even in that last round of play. When he gets down to like Twyla and beefing with Eliza so hardcore. Like I think Twyla was kind of put past her limit at that point.
The Twyla, I still remember the iconic scene of Twyla leaning, the camera panning over, and Twyla's like leaning in on her knee. Like I still think about that shot. Like that shot, that was a comedy shot. It really was. the pan over the and then the like slow zoom in on her just sitting there.
Yeah,
it was great. Yeah,
but Twyla, like, she played the game as best as she could, like given her personality. I feel like she but ultimately like the way that she interacted with Eliza and stuff like that, like that's gonna come back to bite you. Like especially when Eliza was betrayed by Chris. Like any other person's there who was like a little nicer to Eliza, then maybe that would be a more favorable decision for her. You want to be in like, and Julie was so betrayed. If there was just someone, like if you just said strengthen those relationships a little bit more, you could have definitely been in the ballpark, definitely winnable. But Chris ultimately beats Twyla 5-2. Only Amy and Scout vote for Twyla. Scout and Twyla were close the whole time. Amy had her problems with Twyla ever since she swore on her son's life.
Yes, that was a big deal of the season. It was a big deal at Tribal. It was a big deal just in general to a lot of folks. It seemed like they brought it up at multiple tribal councils, but even at Final Tribal.
So, a big moment of the season, one that kind of dwelled over Twyla's game for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
But
kind of unfairly so, I think. I think we've discussed that quite a bit.
But I think Chris and Twyla both had really interesting journeys from the beginning.
Yeah,
you
definitely.
Had Chris failing on the balance beam famously in the first challenge, in the classic position of like, oh, that's the person we're gonna vote out.
Yeah.
Him and Sarge came together and were like, all right, we're gonna take out the young guys, so those old guys don't get taken out. And I remember Chris from the first episode in the confessional, he was very confident. He was like, oh, I got it all figured out. He wasn't sweating it at all that he was.
Yeah.
They could be going home for that.
That's right. He was like, nah, I'm not going home from that. You kidding me? Yeah. He was like, we got this in the bag. Yeah.
But it's like,
so that was true. Yeah. Even from then, he was strategizing hard. So.
And then make it all the way to be the last man standing. And then when his wife came on the loved one's reward, the challenge,
he's like, I'm going home, babe.
Going home.
Yeah, he's like, you barely hear him.
Home.
Yeah.
And and then epically, as soon as he gets back to camp, is when they start talking about possibly voting out. I think they were talking about someone else at that point. Yeah, they were talking about Eliza.
Yeah.
I think maybe it was Julie who went up to him and said they were going to vote Eliza, and he was like, "Oh man,
Yeah.
immediately happy about this." But then it ended up ultimately culminating in Leanne getting voted out.
Yeah.
And then Twyla's journey from the beginning is interesting as well, because they had the whole tribal council with Amy, where Amy had voted for Twyla, but she was like, "Oh, maybe you should get your hair braided," and because she was having problems relating to the other women and connecting with them.
Right.
And then go from there all the way to the end the way she did. I feel like almost Twyla was dealt a bad hand in this season as like the woman who gets along with men more than women, to end up being on a season that's split between men and women.
Yeah.
So the fact she made it to the end is pretty impressive. She's able to.
It was. She fought hard the whole time. Like she's a scrappy. She was a very scrappy player, as I guess how I describe her. She was always pretty honest about her feelings, how she felt. She kind of wears her heart on her sleeve in a way. Mm-hmm. And that, to a point, I think worked to her detriment, but it never got her out. People knew. I like what other people said. Twyla couldn't be anything but Twyla.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's just who she is.
Given that, she played a really good game.
Yeah.
But Chris had some low lows where he was completely blindsided when Julie and Twyla didn't vote with him initially.
Yeah.
And then once he's the last man standing and they give him that glimmer of hope, it's very quickly when he goes from there to being in the best position in the game. And he's especially in the final 5, he's firmly in the best position, and he's just telling both sides what they want to hear, and he's like, I can just pick whatever side I want to go with.
Yeah.
And then he can do the same thing at Final 4, and then he's basically deciding how the season's going to go from there.
Yeah, which is crazy that they didn't, because it sort of is just in how the season played out. You just happened to have 2 groups of women that for whatever reason just wouldn't get along with each other. They were both looking to him. Both groups were looking to him because he'd formed relationships with both sides. It's just kind of crazy how that sort of happened, So
ultimately, he could have gone with Julie and Eliza instead of Twyla and Scout, which, in retrospect, it seems like he made the right decision. Obviously, with less competition with Scout and Twyla. Yeah. He probably could have gone the other way and still had a good shot at winning, but
I think so. Yeah.
I think he just made it easier on himself this way. He ended up betraying both Julie and Eliza, but in going to the end with Twyla, he still got both of their votes. So
yeah, and he would have betrayed them too. So it's like whoever you go with, you betray really the other side.
Yeah, I don't know if they would have taken it as kindly. So
yeah. All right, it was quite a season. It was very good, very interesting developments throughout. I was thoroughly entertained. I would definitely put this one fairly high. We don't necessarily have to talk about rankings yet. I don't know what else you have planned. But
okay, so there's a person on Reddit who said Sue Yi is their name.
Okay.
And they said we have to talk about the mystique of Leanne. Because this was a thing in the Survivor fan community ever since the season. There's always been a talk that they think Leanne was under-edited and she was actually the one running things. So between her and Amy, it's a topic of much debate.
Okay, interesting. That's an interesting theory.
They say you have to talk about the mystique of Leanne, who was top dog. Was it her or Amy? The jury still seems to be out on it. And you can't forget to mention her blind side, arguably the greatest blind side of all time. So, yeah, but it
was amazing. It was an amazing vote. I mean, it was a great, spectacular blind side. I think it was upending the tea table to such a dominant duo like that is just there's almost nothing like it. It's just super satisfying to see.
And in terms of Leanne and how she was edited, she didn't give much to the show, so that was almost a fitting way for her to go out. Is she got this iconic blindside, so it almost made her character, her role worth it.
Yeah, and it made, because in editing, her being essentially Amy's toady, more or less, like she's like, oh, I've got her by my side no matter what type thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was sort of it kind of worked that way, because then we got Amy's reaction, Amy being like the kind of the primary person that we were sort of getting.
Yeah, Amy being the one left was a lot better
Yeah.
than I feel like if Amy didn't have immunity, she would have been voted out, and to be left with Leanne, it's not nearly as satisfying. But
yeah, that's an interesting idea, though. I definitely think there's some clues to give that theory merit. I don't think the jury will probably ever be solved on that one.
yeah,
frankly,
I don't know if there's much of a basis for it. I don't know if there's anything that's been taken from interviews after the game that
it's a possibility, I
that
suppose.
led into that. Because other than that, it's just like all we have is what we've been shown. So
my guess is some of it has to do with the fact that Amy was never seen strategizing or talking strategy without Leanne. For one thing, she was almost always, even when she was talking to people, it was like always her and Leanne. Additionally, she would repeatedly insist that she's not the one in charge.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take her at face value and you take the idea that her and Leanne are always together, Leanne could have been the one that was secretly the mastermind behind everything. I don't necessarily know how much I buy into that. It's a lot of speculation. I don't think it's necessarily.
Yeah.
It really is. It really all kind of is. Even in the edited show, I mean, there's still plenty of speculation to be had, but I don't know if it has enough merit to really warrant too much credence. But like, it's a worthy enough discussion. I mean, if there's more evidence, I'd definitely like to hear about it at some point. I think that's an interesting idea.
So I was gonna say, if there's anything to support that theory, I'd like to hear. More from it.
Yeah,
because I haven't heard anything explicitly. There's just kind of this like niche following for like Leanne, or Leanne. They felt like Leanne didn't get the edit she deserved, and a lot of times people have this idea in these seasons because like it's not like Big Brother where we see everything. So
right,
but
yeah, she did feel like she was almost like maybe under edited or underutilized, I guess. Where we didn't really get a whole lot out of her. Everything with her was always with Amy for the most part, except for some of the rare confessional, which she didn't get tons by herself. She got the earthquake one, but not like
she just happened to be there when the earthquake.
Yeah,
was
she
happening.
just happened to be there. Yeah,
Amy, quick, come get him over here. We need you for this confessional. Yeah, so I generally don't buy into that, unless I have more to go on, because
like maybe other contestants saying like, oh yeah, Leanne was like, she was going crazy out there, like, or
Like I remember hearing, I think it was an interview with Rory, that they asked him about this, and I think he said Amy was the top dog.
Yeah.
As far as he could see, but
yeah,
I mean, if anything changed after he left, I don't know, but
yeah, I mean that was everything he was reporting. I mean, he was with the women for all time. I felt like
and he did report that to them in the show. He did say how Amy was running the show. I feel
Amy was running the show. Yeah, he said that. It's like all of them answered to her. So that was like his thing. That was like his big thing. That was like the first thing. He ran back to the men. He's like, "It's all Amy." It was kind of.
So that's why I'm inclined to believe it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you just have to give the benefit of the doubt to the editors sometimes, because you don't have what was left on the cutting room floor. Also, sometimes it could just come down to Leanne's not as interesting television.
Yeah.
So
even if she was maybe the secret mastermind, she just wasn't a very charismatic or interesting person.
She works better as the sidekick to Amy. Who, Amy isn't like super charming. She's got definitely a lot more of a presence about her.
Presence, the Ice Queen sort of aspect, as we joked about.
We had that whole scene where it zooms in on her as the women are like fixing her up.
Yeah, like the slow zoom while she's staring like off the camera. So the camera's like zooming in here, but she's like just off the lens. It's very off-putting. It's very unsettling. It would have been more unsettling if she'd been looking right into it, but it was still very like unsettling. And then it was like that, and then like when there was at Final Tribal where they like parted ways and like both women like helped her down off the behind them. It was like, my gosh.
Another thing that Chase Ferrier asked.
Okay.
Had the women stuck together and voted out Chris at the final 7, how do you think the game plays out?
That's an interesting question. I feel like there was probably enough gung ho in the with like Scout and with Twyla. They would have tried to pull something. I don't necessarily know if they would have been able to, because the thing is
Right.
that they would have had to convince both Eliza and Julie to side with them, and I don't know if they could really do that.
This would have been interesting to see play out. I
Yeah,
think because you would have Leanne, Amy, and Julie were a trio, and then Eliza, Scout, and Twyla. In this universe, they didn't come together for this vote with Chris,
right.
so they're not even bounded by that,
Yeah,
and
so
there's
that
already some rocky stuff there. So
so that makes it a little bit more difficult to manage. It's going to be hard. I mean, I think maybe if they're able to kind of convince her, maybe if it's real tough. I mean, I think Eliza's out next easily, just by popular vote. They just would get rid of her, and I think after that,
well, Chris wasn't even the vote at 7. Chris, like
yeah,
Amy and Leanne and Julie voted for Eliza, right? So even they
yeah,
ended up switching at that point. So it's really interesting because then you'd have to shift your whole perspective of how it went.
yeah. It is
'Cause-
hard to manage that because you would have to do so, but I think Amy definitely would just Amy is just great in challenges. I think Eliza's great in challenges too, though. So a lot of it's going to come down to immunity, obviously, as it always does. I think Amy's got a great shot. I think Eliza, if she could stay up in challenges, has a great shot.
I don't. I think Eliza would be the next one
And
voted out. I think that would almost
she
be
would be
like.
the next one voted out unless she could, yeah, unless she could somehow continue to get immunity.
I think that's
Which
the.
I mean,
I think.
crazier things have happened.
I think
But
it's the best consensus they could have gotten was to vote Eliza out
yeah,
at that point, and then I think Twyla probably will just stick to that final 4 at that point since they didn't decide to go with Chris. She would stick to the final 4 she swore on.
mm-hmm.
So Amy, Leanne, uh, what was the thing she swore on? Amy, Leanne, Twyla,
Yeah, Amy Lou and Twyla
and Julie.
and Julie, I think. Yeah,
So she would probably stick it out with that, which obviously is
yeah.
not ideal for her. But I don't know if they would have voted out Scout next after that.
I still think Twyla probably would also have a chance too.
But she'd
If
have
that's
to.
the case,
But
if
what could
she's
she do at that point? Especially if they vote out Eliza. That's
wins immunity towards in the if she's in Final Four and she wins immunity, we've
well, if
seen
she wins,
crazier
yeah,
things. We've seen crazier things happen.
that's
We've
true.
seen crazier things happen. Friggin' Jenna Maraska won Survivor Amazon. We've
Yeah.
seen crazier things happen. you
But
know,
if
so
if the ideal like just take it out of the equation immunity, I wonder how the votes would go. I feel like it would
it's
probably end up being Amy, Julie, and Leanne final 3, right?
yeah, probably.
Probably.
And then what? Julie and Amy maybe at the bottom, or you think Amy would
Depends,
bring
'cause
Leanne?
in this reality, we'd have to be hearing a lot more from
Yeah,
Leanne
yeah, it's
and
true.
Julie as to what they're thinking, like, and like if
Yeah, we
Leanne's willing to turn on who she willing to turn on here, and like do
yeah,
they think they have a chance against Amy? Like it would be a whole different narrative there.
we didn't get like tons and tons of Julie either.
We
I
didn't
think we
get
talked
tons of
about that.
Julie, and
We
we have
talked
no
about that at
idea
one
what
point.
Leanne's end game was at all. Like
Yeah, yeah.
like she was just an extension of Amy.
How,
So we
how
don't
are
know
you?
what she
Yeah,
was
how are you
thinking.
going to pivot to like ever beat Amy? Like people,
You never get a true sense of the kind of player she was. Like,
right?
was she willing to just go to the end with Amy, their final 2? Was she
Right. She was
willing
just
to
kind of
turn
a
on
hang.
Amy? Does she
She was
think she
just kind
doesn't
of.
need to turn on Amy because she would have more enemies? I don't know.
She was just a hanger on, basically. So
Yeah, so this would be an interesting, even though we wouldn't have liked it at the time. I still could think it could have been an interesting end game to have
yeah,
Chris voted out there. But
yeah,
ultimately, like for Twyla and Eliza to have a better shot, they knew that this was the moment that they had to
yeah,
do that. Otherwise, the numbers would be out of their hands, because they would have 3-3 in terms
yeah,
of the Amy, Julie, Leanne trio. So it would
yeah.
be harder to combat. Chase Ferrier, would you be interested in Da being a contestant in a future season?
I mean, Da was
Get,
freaking dominant, man. Like,
get
did you
Da.
see Da? Yeah, get Da. We're Da
Da, the
stands here.
best winner of all time.
I'm hoping that means he watched how big fans that we were of Da
Yeah,
when
definitely.
he was. Da just like changed the whole dynamic of the women's tribe. They were all like happy with each other after that. It was great.
Da comes back next season. He's the most dominant winner you've ever seen.
The
He just destroys. He runs the game from the beginning. They all think I can't speak English.
But I actually can't. They all think I can't speak.
But I
That'd
don't
be
know
a
how
great
he's
twist.
orchestrating things. But he just does it. He's so good.
He
He's not
pantomimes
speaking
extremely
English.
well. He pantomimes extremely well.
I think that's about it. I got one more. I got one thing to show you.
Okay.
I'm gonna show you. Send you a little link.
Okay.
Classic.
Classic Survivor link.
As I will say, there was a bit of a relationship after the show.
Oh, okay.
Did not have near the longevity of a Boston Rob and Amber.
Okay, which as
There
we
was a
see,
brief stint.
as we saw was a beautiful thing.
So just take a look at that.
I'm sorry, what? Is this maybe why Jeff didn't like?
Yeah, that's one of the theories.
Jeff didn't like him.
That's one of the theories.
You broke her heart.
He's riding
How
for
dare
his
you.
girl.
Are you freaking serious?
Yeah.
This is weird. Is this okay?
I think this is the only case that I can recall of him dating someone after the show.
That's so bizarre. How does that happen? Really? Like, is it just like in production meetings after the show, they just kind of got talking and it was like, hey, I think you're kind of cute.
Yeah,
and
probably like the after parties and stuff. There's probably
Yeah.
stuff going on. I don't want to know.
How old is she? She was like in her 20s, right? And he's like 45.
Then he wasn't that old, is he? This is 20 years ago. Maybe. He wasn't that old, I don't feel like.
Maybe not.
I don't know. He's pretty old now, though, so maybe.
Yeah.
But he looks pretty young.
No, he looks young enough. He's a strapping man, you know.
But yeah, remember Julie had that whole like the paint with the little Jeff in the heart and everything when they had the body paint and stuff.
Yeah. So maybe
was
there
teasing it all along.
It was teasing it all along. Was there some pre-production stuff going on there? Maybe. Huh?
There's just thick sexual tension throughout the whole season.
Tons of sexual tension.
So much on the cutting room floor.
Dude, I was gonna say. So every time he was like, "So Julie," wink, wink, nudge. No, I was gonna say like, oh crap! I was gonna say something, but I don't remember what now.
My brother was saying that maybe I should ask you like so Jeff did a contestant after the show. Who do you think it was?
Yeah,
it was like Julie's the first guest, right?
Yeah, I mean she's my for go-to.
Better way to do it.
Yeah,
Julie's yeah.
It's just kind of odd, you know. It was like it's just like. There's no contractual thing where it's like you can't date the contestants of the show? Apparently not. I guess not, considering he did for a brief period of time. Right. Yeah, that's wild. Yeah. I like how they're just like together at a dinner is what that looks like.
There was
right?
one with them, there was one picture of them like making out. I don't know why it was out there.
It's
but
like
it was there.
Okay.
Like.
I mean, look, like where they are here is like a Survivor Vanuatu like thing. This is like just after the show. So I don't know.
You see up there, they're coloring. What is this at Chili's?
Yeah, they look like they're like friggin' Applebee's and they're just chilling out. There they are.
I think they're at Chili's because that's
that is. That's the Chili's like seating in the table pattern.
I don't know why they're coloring.
Where they're at Chili's. That's funny. Yeah.
Because it looks like, just at a glance, you'd think it's like they're doing a signing or something.
Yeah, but it's like, no.
No, he's coloring.
Jeff's just coloring at a Chili's. That is definitely pretty wild.
So that's the one like post-season thing. Maybe that's why Jeff didn't like Chris, because he betrayed his girl.
That's right. You betrayed my girl. Yeah.
Kind of lame, but
kind of sus there. Jeff. What Jeff really wanted was gunning for her to win, so he could get some of that sweet $1 million moolah.
I'm sure Jeff's doing fine.
I think Jeff's doing just fine.
All right, so it's the time of the show where we do Survivor Superlatives.
Oh, we've come to that point.
All right. First of all, there's a new award now that we've been accumulating all season long called the MVP award.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right.
Which is not necessarily your favorite, but just one of the most MVP awards throughout the season.
Okay.
And so that will go to Twyla.
All right. Well, hey, worthy, very worthy. She was, like I said, very scrappy, strategic player.
So yeah, she had 4 MVP episodes, and it's followed by Chris, Eliza, and Bubba with 2 each.
Wow, how about that?
Bubba,
and Bubba, old Bubba.
He made his presence known in those couple episodes. Now, this is also a new thing. Who would you name your pre-jury gem?
Pre-jury gem. Who else could it possibly be but Rory? Really, you got to give it to him. I mean, it's not even just because he's number 10. Like, if he'd been voted out before the merge. Rory was just a bundle of joy.
I feel like he's a clear standout. Most seasons don't have that much of a clear standout.
They don't. And he definitely was. I mean, we saw like a bit of a character arc. We saw growth with Rory,
Only with maybe Boston Rob and Survivor Marquesas. Yeah. So we had such a strong pre-jury contender.
It's true. It's actually I would say that's very true. Yes. Yeah.
So now, who would you award your Alex favorite player award?
My favorite player of the game. I think I'm gonna have to give it to Chris. He just did he was just such an amazing player of the game. I mean, it's honestly a toss-up between him and Twyla. I obviously gave Twyla more of the MVP. I think she was an integral part of every one of those episodes where Chris was able to pivot. But I think Chris's ability to adequately listen to the right people at the right time, his way to be able to form relationships, use them in his favor, and know who to go for when. He wasn't perfect. No one's ever perfect in this game, really. Mm-hmm. Except for maybe Richard Hatch in the first season, where he was pretty much just like just did a stupendous
but he wasn't
job.
Perfect either. He got 4-3 vote.
It's true. He wasn't perfect. Yeah, it's true. And Chris was 6. What was it? 5 and 2. 5 to 2. So I mean, it's still very good. But yeah, I think his strategic play. He was there day one. He was playing the game, and I think he did a great job. He's a fascinating player to watch for sure.
Very entertaining. He had good confessionals too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
a lot of the cast is entertaining. I mean, you talk about flaws. Like, imagine Twyla as a winner. She'd be such a flawed queen.
A flawed queen, yeah, for sure.
You stand. So, who would be your cutie of the season?
Toss it between 2, but I think I got to give it to Julie. Even Jeff showed it. It's like, he was interested, but it's like her or Eliza. It's like they go back and forth. They're both very attractive ladies. I do like eyes quite a lot. And Eliza had extremely expressive eyes. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to stick with Julie.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a surprise. Really?
We're always talking about Eliza all season. So
was it?
Dolly? What about Dolly?
Dolly looked really cute in that hat.
But again, it's like making your presence known. If Dolly was in the final 4, she'd probably be in contention. You can't get voted out second. It's rough.
Yeah, it's
rough.
All
right, Julie, good work.
Hey, Dolly, how are the sheep doing?
Yeah, how are those sheep doing, Dolly?
Dolly.
Okay, Jack. Jeff.
Jack. Okay, Jack. All right, here, Jack. You're dating Julie, all right?
Someone should have just outed him right there.
Yeah.
Because they're probably dating at that point. That's all I could think about when he asked Julie a question.
Well, I felt
that.
like, I mean, there was that wait period between the reunion and that, so maybe that's when they struck up their. That was what I was going to say earlier. I forgot, but it was like, so maybe it was like just during the wait period between the end of the season and like the reunion. Maybe that was like when they struck it up.
Yeah. So what
Uh,
do you remember? What the best? Who would have the best intro shot of the season?
I think I favored Sarge.
Sarge had
He was
a good
Yeah,
smile.
he was getting all kind of muddy, and he was after the crawl, and he had that like really great smile, and he had like mud on his teeth.
Hmm.
It was just great. It was just a fun shot. Everyone else, no one really had like a really outstanding shot this season,
Yeah.
except for the guy jumping off the
Yeah.
tower at the very beginning, which we kept
Da.
saying until the very end. Yeah, I don't even think it was Da,
It
but
was
we could
Da.
just say it was Da. Yeah,
I still don't like how they used Lee and Travis as the names instead of Sarge and Bubba.
considering that they
Like,
never
what are
called
they?
them
Like, what do you want to like?
Lee.
I don't
They
want to
never called them
spoil that
Lee
they
and
ended up
Travis.
giving them nicknames here. I
Maybe they asked them that. Maybe they're like, "Could you use our real names, please?"
okay, sure.
Yeah.
It would have been like they're much better names, Sarge and Bubba,
Sergeant
much more
Bubba. Yeah.
memorable. So
Yeah. I was like, I
surprised.
always forget when you say Lee, and I was like, Lee. Oh, right. Sarge. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's it for our awards, and now
Mm.
we'll go into our rankings. So
Rankings.
season
This is the big
rankings.
thing here. Yeah.
So right now your rankings stand as Pearl Islands, the Amazon, Australian Outback, Borneo, Marquesas, All Stars, Africa, Thailand.
I'm,
Where's
I'm
anyone
gonna
wants to go?
I'm gonna straight up say it. It's right under Pearl Islands for me.
Right under Pearl
Yeah. This is
Islands.
a fantastic season overall. I like cutting the fat early out. Doing that. I felt it worked better than Amazon overall. I felt like we had integral players who were playing very strategically throughout. Um, and I just entertaining all the way through.
Hmm.
It's up there for me.
Yeah, so my rankings were Pearl Islands, Amazon, Borneo, Marquesas, Australian Outback, All Stars, Africa, Thailand. I don't know. It's definitely somewhere in the top four. It's
Mm,
under Pearl Islands, obviously. Pearl
yeah,
Islands, legendary.
it was a
But
legendary
I
season.
think it
Yeah,
could be any arrangement of Amazon, Borneo, and this season for me.
it is tough. I was very confident in that just because I think right now I'm in the glow of I think I enjoyed this more than Amazon, and just given my rankings, I wanted to put it there. I mean, I'm not going to be upset if you're put it somewhere else.
Yeah,
It's like
because I think the Amazon, the winner isn't as satisfying. Chris
yeah,
is a better winner,
yeah.
but
But
Rob
Sesternino
Cesternino as the
is
driving force.
as a driving force is fascinating and wonderful to watch.
I think I'll put
His
it
earnestness.
under the Amazon for now.
Okay.
I'm so unconfident. I'm
Mm.
gonna just be less and less confident. Once we have like 25 seasons in here, what are we gonna do?
Yeah, it's like how the heck are we supposed to
You
even do
keep
that?
track of that.
Yeah. That's why we have curated a list, so we can kind of keep track of it.
But it'll be so hard. Like it's like that was 20 seasons ago. Is that better than this
Yeah.
one? I don't know.
When we're like 45 and we're like, I don't really remember that season.
Yeah. All right. So in terms of the winner, where does Chris place as the best winners? So
Okay.
right now your rankings are Richard Hatch, Brian Heidick, Sandra Diaz Twine. I just have the numbers. I don't know why I did this.
Okay.
I had the numbers of the season.
Oh, that's weird.
Vesepia, Tina, Ethan, Amber, Jenna.
Chris didn't dominate as much as Brian Heidick, but that being said, do I put him underneath Richard Hatch? I put him in number 2. What are my top 4 again? It's Richard.
Richard Hatch, Brian, Sandra, Vesepia.
I think for now I'll put him underneath Brian. I think for now.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked over time. I think I've been convinced, despite the fact that Thailand was terrible and the fact that I find Brian horribly dislikable, the fact that he was able to play the game as dominantly as he did throughout basically the entire time, it's pretty impressive. It makes him a great survivor, winner. We'll see how I continue to feel about that as time goes on.
Yeah. The thing with Brian is, and with doing these, it can be kind of arbitrary doing these comparisons because obviously it's a different cast every time.
Very different cast, yeah.
Because I feel like this cast was so much more competitive than the cast in Thailand.
Unbelievably competitive cast, yeah.
So, like, I mean, Chris was navigating that. Brian, I wonder, like, you know, with these kinds of people, how he would, would do, because we really just saw him. It was like he was in the dominant spot the whole time, and he didn't really have much in adversity.
The driver's seat the whole game.
Yeah, it's like the reality where Amy just got to the end in the same position, you know?
Yeah.
So you could have had similar problems as Amy if he was blindsided or surprised. You know?
Right. Which could have happened multiple times and just didn't.
But it's like, yeah, it's hard to compare, but you can't fault him for going against the worst cast. You know, you can't really.
Yeah.
But yeah, so my rankings were Richard Hatch, Brian Heidick, Tina Wesson, Sandra Diaz-Twine, Vesepia Towery, Ethan Zahn, Amber Mariano, and Jenna Maraska. So mine, I would do the same. I would put them under Brian.
Mm.
So we have the same top three at least.
Yeah, gotta respect those games, man.
I think he's a solid winner.
Yeah,
you know, he's a great player because he navigated being from the bottom and into a place where he was in the best position. So, I mean, he just lucked out that he quote unquote lucked out at certain parts that he was able to get just right where he needed to be.
Yeah.
In order to have that chance, but then he navigated it well.
There's always a little luck at play in Survivor.
Yeah. But yeah, and he's good at challenges too. So once he got himself into the end game, he was pretty comfortable for the most part.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That's Survivor Vanuatu.
There it is. So that's great season. I highly enjoyed it. Highly enjoyed revisiting and talking about it. Thank you to all the people who ask questions, by the way, too. I have absolutely no involvement in any of that. Because I've been essentially sworn to secrecy on all future Survivor episodes. So I'm not in the subreddit. I'm not in the YouTube comments. I don't check any of that stuff. So thanks to all you folks who continue to watch us. It's fun. I'm glad you enjoy this journey we've been going on.
Yeah, and I meant to mention in the beginning that if you're just seeing this review, we did do reactions to every episode of the season. You can go back and we discuss each one individually, if that interests you. And then you can also go back. This is the 5th season we've done reactions on every episode.
That's insane to think about. This is the 5th one, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we went through, I think through, what, Marquesas was it? Just by watching it on our own and then doing season reviews. And then we moved on to doing reactions
every episode, which gives you just like a new level of appreciation. I feel like, because when you binge, it was fun binging through those first few seasons, but it's like a lot of it just tends to blend together now. Just thinking back on it,
now especially with taking notes and everything, we really kind of helps us remember the seasons a little bit more.
Yeah, and even just separating by episode is like you can remember the key moments better. If you can look back, and we can always look back on it. It's cool.
Yeah.
See reactions. It's fun seeing someone watch it for the first time too, you know.
Turning me into a Survivor scholar.
Yeah. So next up is Survivor Palau, but we will be taking about a month break before then. So we're going to be watching Black Mirror, a few episodes of that, just to mix things up.
We haven't really we've taken breaks here and there, but it's been mostly just due to either, my move and / COVID being a factor. Then there was, of course, just some various vacation times and things, editing problems we've had, what with recording woes, but nothing like where we've legitimately taken a break, but like, all right, let's watch something else just for a little bit, just for the sake of variety, not getting burned out, that sort of thing. We're definitely still very passionate about Survivor, but we just want to shake it up a little bit. Watch something else.
And
just for a little bit.
Yeah, I've wanted to watch different things, and it's just like there's not enough time to do both
No.
In an ideal world, we'd be able to do so much more, but it's so that's why I thought Black Mirror would be a good one, because it's not like a huge long seasons to go through. We could do like a little bit at a time. The first season's only 3 episodes, so it'll be like a month break, and then we'll be back to Survivor. And neither of us are burnt out, but yeah, you can always run the risk of being burnt out, especially when we've done Survivor nonstop for so long.
Right.
So you don't want to always appreciate Survivor.
Always. I've been appreciating it for quite a long time now.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So.
And so yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching, and please come back for more Survivor Palau. It'll be a fun time.
It will be great.
What video would you recommend our viewers watch after watching this one?
Go watch our full-on review of Survivor All Stars. Go check it out. That's
the season where it's in the lower half of the ones we watched, but it's still a fun time.
It's still a very satisfying arc. I mean, so I will say, I do have a friend in another, like just a friend group I have, and she's been very good. She has not, because I told her the restrictions that you presented to me, so she's been very, very good and has not spoiled anything, but she's a Survivor fan as well. And so after I finished All Stars, we talked about it, and she talked about how much she likes the arc of it. And then she went back and watched it after we talked about it. She's like, "Oh, this is great. I just need to go back and watch it again." So, yeah.
Did you tell her to watch her reactions of it?
Yeah, she apparently has been. She said that she does. So
she's like a super fan, or
I don't know if super fan. I think she's fairly casual, but I don't really know. Again, she's mum on details because she knows the rule. Them's the rules. So.
All right. Well, yeah, it's been a fun time.
Mm-hmm.
So subscribe to the channel, subscribe to our podcast feed, like the video, leave a comment, hit the notification bell, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and like us on Facebook at Tarqaron TWO. All right.